In this series of videos I'm attempting to repair this HP9862A plotter, and in the previous videos in this series so far I've gone through the basic mechanics. I've stripped down the chassis and I'm starting to reassemble it, but in the previous video I was looking at some missing parts, or trying to figure out what the missing parts were that are used to control the pen raise and lower. And I do have the service manual for it, but it's not a great deal of help. So the parts that are missing are this part. So we're looking at parts 19 and 20. So we've got a lever that sits between the pen lower raise solenoid and the bar that runs up and down here. Now when I received the plotter, the bar was with it. It's got a bend in it. I still need to straighten this out. But it wasn't fitted to the machine. It was just loose in the box, and the parts that subsequently I realised were missing fit in this area, and they're used to control the angle of this, which in turn raises and lowers the pen onto the chart paper. And this is what the manual is like. This is the best copy I have, and as I say, these are the parts I had to make, and even if you zoom in, it doesn't really help. So these are the parts. You can kind of see vaguely what's going on here, but this drawing doesn't even match the photograph that's in the same manual, and the only photograph that includes that part is this one, and in all the other photographs it's been removed. So it's this, and it's very unclear as to exactly how it's arranged. You can kind of see the general profile, but not how it interacts and engages with the parts it's meant to control. Also things such as the spring tension that is required, because obviously all this has to be sprung to allow the pen to take up variations in the platter, and also variations in the pens themselves. And of course if you press it, you don't want it broken, and at the same time this cover needs to be hingeable. It has to be able to be raised, and this drawing doesn't really help, and so I had to try and figure it out. I have subsequently received some very good photographs from a subscriber, and it does look like the solution I'd come up with is very close to the original. This is what I eventually ended up making. It's quite a complex shape, but it's the lever that sits between the solenoid and the pen lift control bar. And as I say, I'd already made this, but it does appear to be very similar to the final version. The only thing I couldn't figure out is in the photographs it showed a plastic piece on the end. I'm not really sure exactly what form that should take, but I think the idea of it is is meant to rotate to allow you to disengage this from this bar. Can't confirm that, and I have asked a couple of people, but they're not quite sure. So I have made this so it does rotate, and I can then rotate this out of the way once it's fitted, and it gives me the ability to raise and lower the cover without having to take all this off. So I'll get this fitted. The only question mark really, it seems to line up, the only question mark is over the spring tension. So I may have to make a stronger or weaker spring. I suspect this might be a bit too strong, but this is what I'm going to go with for now, and once I get the machine hopefully up and running, I can see how well it works, and then whether I need to modify this and make a new spring. Okay, so I'll get these fitted, we'll have a quick look and see if it actually works. So that's what the parts look like when they're fitted, and I don't know if this is correctly adjusted yet. It might need a bit of tweaking, and as I say, the spring might be too strong. But if I now operate this from the bench supply, you can see it's working quite well. And also if I rotate this little tab out of the way, which I think is how it's supposed to work, then it allows me to open this flap without having to take this entire assembly out. But as I say, I'm not quite sure if this is how it's supposed to work, but it does seem to work quite well, and it does mean you can open and close this very quickly. So as you can see, it's very quick, and it does seem to be working. Now the other thing I did was to this little plastic piece is 3D printed, and I made this the correct dimensions so that when the solenoid is energized, this plate is all the way down onto its stop. There's a stop at the bottom end of it that dictates how far down it can go, and so I arranged all this so that with the solenoid energized, it was all the way down on that stop. So I don't know if that's the way it's supposed to be, but it certainly seems to make sense, and it operates quite well. So fingers crossed it will work when I reassemble the entire machine. Okay, I still have something similar to do with the pen holder. I've got to figure out exactly what shape and size this should be. Again, a subscriber has sent me some very nice photographs, albeit with the pen holder fitted to the machine. So I just need to figure out exactly how it attaches to this, and then hopefully I can 3D print one and be able to attach the pen. I'm not too concerned about the pen just now. I want to get the plotter kind of plotting first, and then I can come back and look at the pen holder later. So the next step is to get this put back into the main machine. I just want to give it a final clean, lubricate it, just check the belt tensions are correct. I think the Y belt or cord is a bit loose, and then once I've done that, I can refit it all into the machine. If it all works, I will glue the little lever I've made to stop it going rusty, and hopefully that's this part sorted out. I have checked the backlash in the two gearboxes, the two motors, and they seem fine. Everything else seems to be connected the way it should. Both of the potentiometers are giving me sensible readings. Incidentally, this potentiometer, it actually includes end stops or end switches. So it's got these two top tracks. The center one, the long one, is the kind of common track, and then at either end, this section here is one of the end travel switches, and there's another one at this end. And so what happens is there are two offset brushes both running on this same top track, and when the travel is reached, or when the end of travel is reached, the first brush, in this case the one on the right hand side, leaves this track and it goes on to the other track, and these two brushes are connected together. They're both soldered to a common fitting here, and that means that because they're connected together, effectively when you get to the right hand end of the travel, these 2 points are joined together and it closes a loop, and same at the other end. The two brushes close this gap and trigger or tell the machine it's at this end of the travel. So it's quite clever, and you've got the same sort of arrangement in the y-axis as well. So it's not just the potentiometer, it also includes two end of travel switches as well. So it's quite clever. They do work. I have tried them. At the moment it's just a mass of wires sticking out the back, but these are the wires I need to get connected to the motherboard that I mentioned in a previous video. But now I can get this refitted to the chassis, get those wires reconnected, and we can start to reassemble the main unit. Okay, so that's the plotter sub-chassis fitted back into the case. When fitting this, there are these two tabs either side that are moulded onto the outer cover, and this bar just needs aligning with those. When I got this, they were quite a long way out, so I've made sure they're aligned, and I can now get the connections refitted onto the motherboard, refit the power driver board, and then in the next video we can start looking at the electronics and see how much work is required to get this up and running. I'm going to leave the platter off for now so I can access the inner workings of the plotter. I don't need it at this point to do the testing. The next step is to start looking at the electronics, and so I will do that in the next video.